Okay, I think we can start and maybe talk a little bit about our presentations sessions. First of all, I think you will enjoy the previous session about JDI framework basics, and we looking for the main elements in JDI and about the UI objects pattern. And today we will look more for about tools around JDI 2.0, and I maybe explain a little bit what new in JDI in this version and what the difference between different versions of JDI, and also I will show you the demo. I hope live demo. We can do it with one tool around JDI that we develop also, and we can have ability to see on code and how we can do all things that are described in presentation in the real life. So shortly about me for new attendees, I'm Roman Iovlev and I'm working in St. Petersburg EPAM office, and one of my activities is develop internal automation test frameworks for our projects, for our teams, and we do this constantly, increasing our experience in this area and using these frameworks on our projects. This really help us to reduce time and effort, engineers' effort on the new test automation projects warm up and start, and we can continuously increase our experience here. Today we will talk, we will continue a little bit on JDI and cover topics that not covered on the previous session, and we'll have a live demo our framework flash pages, and I a little bit describe the ideas placed in its heart. So first of all, let's remember for ordinal web application, we have some pages that we call in Selenium page objects, and in JDI we call it UI objects, and we can have a list of sections on these pages and elements. In UI objects pattern, instead of supreme web elements, we have typified elements like buttons, labels, drop-downs, tables, and so on. And also we can have organize our elements with sections. What this mean in code? I just put here some small example. We have a site entity. This is a class with the domain in the above this class. Also, this can be moved in properties, and if you have different environments, for example, test, stage, and so on, you can set up this as property in the properties files and from the Maven or Gradle properties. Next, we can see that for each page that placed on the site, we can have a page class where we can describe relative URL, titles, and so on. And on pages, we can have elements or sections in them. Also on site, we can put some elements if this is common elements for whole site, for example, navigation menu or footer or something like this. We have no restrictions to put on the pages on the site class. And one of the good benefits of UI object that we can initialize all this stuff, all pages, all elements, and so on, with just one call of method init from that site. We can do it one time, and all pages are initialized. As you know, for example, in page factory pattern, you need to do this each time for each page that you have in page objects. And also one main difference with Selenium or Selenium-like, for example, Selenit frameworks, you can't have sections or some blocks on your pages, all your elements from the page you need to put on this page. Let's go deeply to the page class. It should be extended from the web page, and you can put some additional data, meta information about this page directly on the page object or UI object, and not put it in your tests. So you can easily modify this data only in one place, and this place is our application model UI objects. What properties you can have for JDI page annotation? This is URL for your page. This is title of your page. You can set up which type of validation you have by default for this page. For example, you can have equal or contains or match assertion for your page, and the same for title. If you have match assertion for URL, you need to set up a URL template where you can set up have the regular expression for your URL. If you have match for title, you can just put in title the regular expression. And what we will have when extend our page object from the page. With no effort, we already get all things, all stuff related to the operating with this page. We can open this page, for example, home or contact page. We can validate is it opened or not, and if it is not opened, we can open it. We can check is it opened, and if not, we will throw the exception. We can do all stuff related to the pages like refresh, forward, reload, back, and do some things with cookies, which placed in WebDriver in Selenium. And here, this is has access directly from the home page. And also, if you want, you can get all elements from your page as that data entity. For example, some abstract or some contacts if your page represents this entity. For example, for product page, this is, I think, more common example. You have some product, I don't know, suit or some jacket on it, and you can get all data from it with jacket entity, for example, product entity, and operate it in future. I will show this ability a little bit later when we will talk about pattern entities-driven testing. So let's look on the next idea placed on the pages. And we want to reuse somewhere. For example, we have different two contact forms on the page, or for example, some navigation elements on different pages. We can have the section for this form and put all data in this section, and on page we just have the contact form section. This tree-like structure where we have nodes, our sections, and the leaves, our elements, that all stuff that can be initialized in one string, as I already say, initialized in cascade way. This means that all locators that we have, for example, for sections, will be added to the locators of their items. And if we have if I have different sections with the same structure and same elements, but different root locator, we just can have two sections here, set up a root locator, and they have the same class for this contact form. In Selenium approach, we need to have two different pages and set up different locators for these elements in order to not intersect them and to have uniqueness for these elements. Okay, let's go forward to a little bit more complex section, or like we call it, composite element. Also, you can extend your page object from form. For example, in our example, we have the contact form with some elements and submit button. The typical form is just the page of some container with elements that you can input some values. This can be really different elements. For example, drop downs, multi-selectors, radio buttons, checkboxes, and so on. And you can submit this form with some button. I hope in a lot of projects we have too much forms, different forms, and this ability really helps to operate with forms much faster. So let's look on how we can operate with forms. If we have form defined in the form, we can already also set up the entity for this form, business entity that represent the form structure, but like a data. So we have similar fields here, and just the strings instead of types of elements. Here we can put some data, and then we can just, for example, fill all this form, just putting here our data. We can have data provider and put different users, for example, for this user data, and fill them with different data. Also, we can submit this form. This means we fill data in the form and press submit button or some button that we have for the form. We can verify, and this get with action provide us with Boolean result if all data that we have what we can get from this form are the same as user data, we'll have true. Another way, we will have false, and we can see the list of differences here. Also, we can do a check. This the same like verify, but throw the exception. So we can fail our test here. Also, we can extract all data from this entity as from this form as the entity data. For example, we can get it as a user, and we can operate with it later. For example, assert it with some standard, with some expected data, or validate only some fields in it. Also, we have list of other actions for the forms, like cancel, save, publish, search, and so on. And these actions are pretty much the same as submit, but can click on the button you specify here, or you can just directly set up the name of the button, and you will do this. This is really helpful when you have forms with a list of possible actions. For example, you can cancel form, submit it, you can publish data or something like this, and you have the same form, but different actions will move you to the different pages or will do different activities. So you can separate this or all the stuff with these predefined methods. One more thing related to the data class. This is our special class from our utility JDI Lightsaber that called data. This is if you have experience with Lombok, this is you will get this idea easily, but I describe it to other guys. For example, if we have a data class like user, we want to have in it just the data and no other information. But unfortunately, to operate with it in ordinary Java way, we need to set up, for example, constructors for the class. And if we have, for example, 10 or 20 fields, we need to set up a lot of fields in constructor and maybe put nulls or create a list of constructors if we don't want to set up all these elements, all these fields. Or we need to use the get and set pattern and set up getters and setters for each field. And this is a lot of code that we don't really need to see in the data entity. Also, if we want to assert these entities and just want to verify are they equals or not, we want to have equality on the fields. So, for example, if name are the same, so we this is the same entities. But in common Java, if you do equals on your entities, you just get the false because this is the different objects, and Java don't really worry that it has same fields. All these problems can be fixed by Lombok, for example, but it has problems because this is a special plugin that you need to install. It sometimes broken. You need to re-add it. And here, the Java way solution, you just can put here extend from data user, and you get all abilities you want to have from the data class. You can, for example, do toString for this class and get really readable output for the data. I will show it later in the real life demo. You can assert these entities created from user, and they will be asserted inequality of the fields. So if entities have equal fields, they are equal, no matter that this is different objects. And also you can have ability to set up all your variables, all your fields in this data in the simple way in one line, and you already have the setters for all fields. You can this way you can set up the name, and this way you can set up different field or list of fields. So you can put here any amount of fields and set up this entity. For example, we can have the class for list of users and have the predefined set of users. We have default user. We can have user with default values, but role changed to admin. And this is admin user. Or we can have some Alex user with which fields are changed, and this is completely different from the original. This is really flexible solution. You can do it not only for the testing. Just try. You need for doing this. You need to add the JDI Lightsaber dependency in your project, and you can use it even for Selenium or Selenit or any other frameworks. This is not related to JDI. Or if you already set up JDI, you will get it by default and don't need to add anything new. Okay, last, I think, not last, but last important thing related to JDI, I want to introduce you in identity-driven testing. We comes to it closer, and I just need to describe the things that already described above. Entity-driven testing is the just approach for UI for automation testing, not only UI, and the main idea can be described in for example, we have octocats, different octocats for our test scenario, and we will go move them into our scenario. First, our scenario is for first octocat, and we have some user with data for this octocat. For example, we have some precondition in this test, validate, do we have this user on database or not, and if we haven't this entity, we create this record in database. We can log in with this user, so we have user, we have login form, and we can just say, oh, our application login with octocat. We don't write in our test script input name, input password, and press login. We can also fill a more complex form and submit it, for example, contact details that we have in our entity. And this is also the same one line, just contact us form, submit with user. Also, we can not only fill our entities by data, but we can extract data from the pages, as I described it for the page or form. We can get entity from the page and move it to the next step, our script. And of course, we can assert our entities with some etalon expected entities, just saying assert our entities are equal. No assertions on different fields or something like this. We can set up it in expected entities, which fields are interested for us, and just write assert our entity is expected. I just demonstrated how it looks like in code. Here, our scenario, and here, some code for this implementation. And the good idea here, good thing related to JDI, that a lot of stuff related to this we already have in our elements. For example, we can write a login form, login as user, contact form, like submit as user, and we don't need to write code for these actions. It's already in the page objects in the framework. We also can have get entity from, for example, table, and we can have assert equals our entity with expected with no additional code or effort here if we use a data class. Here are some other examples for the entity-driven testing-like approach. The main idea related to this approach that we operate with business entities that are really common and obvious for our client, for our user, and this adds readability for our tests, and this helps us to reduce code to implement it. Even if we just need few fields from the entity, it will be better to put whole entity in the method and just get only a few fields. This is not a problem for Java, but this adds usability and readability for your tests. Okay, let's move to the rest of the features in JDI. I just define them briefly, and we will go to our live demo that I already announced to you. First, good feature that hidden in the framework, that we have special engine to that helps us to avoid thread sleeps, wait untils, or some other conditions to wait your elements. JDI can find your elements in about, I don't know, 19% cases, and you don't need to write this code, and you don't need to even think about this. You just write your test scenario, like user and all thread sleeps, or most of the thread sleeps and waits and so on, are be processed by the framework. We have some cases when JDI can't do this, with special cases, and I already described them in some other presentations, and I hope we can avoid them here. Okay, next thing related to JDI, because that JDI is already framework. You also just write your test script, don't put any additional code here, and as a result, you will get the really detailed log with written on the user language. For example, open home page, these details, login as user with details for its user, input some text and so on. Also, we have an experimental format with XML log. We can have some deepness in our steps, and we can observe our log in steps level, like click and so on. And if we need to have some more details, we can expand the node in some XML reductor and editor, and observe more deep details, for example, info, log level, or debug level. Of course, for our logging, we have different types of levels, and in addition to common info, debug, and error, we have a steps level for user-like actions. And by default, we're using the SLF4j, log4j logging, and you can set up it in the log4j properties file, or for log4j2 properties file for log4j2. But if you want, you can just set up your awesome logging if you have it, and use it in JDI. You just need to implement simple interface for your logging. And the next point related to any good framework for your automation is the reporting. And by default, we already have the Allure report included in it. Also, we have integration with Report Portal. But by default, we have Allure because it don't need so complex setup for it. You just can run a test and get the output. And unfortunately, for Report Portal, we need to have a server for it, or have some credentials and other setup. But if you're familiar with these activities, you can use it for JDI also. Before I go to live demo, I just want to maybe do more with our politic related to JDI frameworks, different frameworks, and our repositories. We have main repository for JDI original, or JDI 1 version in GitHub EPAM JDI. This is a repository since 2015 year, and it has all stuff for different languages, different platforms, and already proved on a lot of projects. At the autumn of previous year, we have a new release of JDI 2.0 version. We have some architectural changes here, and we put all new features in this version now. So JDI first version just now maintained only for fixing errors and some small issues, but all new features are in JDI 2.0. If we talk about the interfaces, these both frameworks were pretty close, and you can easily switch from one framework to another, but they are not completely backward compatible, so maybe some imports you need to fix, but not really in the code structure, in the writing tests. And also we have the new JDI Lite framework also for UI that released in spring of this year. This is the simple version of JDI framework. It has much less amount of UI elements. It has less entry level to this framework and has much more functionality in it, general, like web element, UI element, element. This framework mostly designed to change the test automation framework on the projects where we already have a list of Selenium tests. You just can change dependency to JDI Lite for your JDI or Selenium framework, and we'll have the power of JDI with threads, no sleeping, with logging and reporting, and so on. And after that, you can step by step increase the quality of your framework and add JDI features to your framework. All our frameworks are placed under the JDI testing community. Here you can see all the frameworks, and I will show it later. And also we have a list of templates for most common UI projects, and you can see them here. For example, you have UI project for Selenium with Maven, and you can find it here. You can have it for Gradle, and also can have it we have template for JDI 2.0 and JDI. And the good idea related to templates and why we use them, because when you have a new project, you just can download the file, the folder, and extract it, and you will have the already set up framework for your automation. Also can be used for Selenium, for example, or Selenite, which is Flash Pages page object generator. As I already say, you can just download template and can have already set up framework. And what you just need is to write page object and write test scenarios. But with Flash Pages, you can avoid half of this effort and only concentrate your effort on the writing test scenarios. I think I can demonstrate it for you. For example, we just will take a simple test scenario that I will implement on your for you in a few minutes later. Just go briefly through this scenario. We will open some site. We'll log in here, open contact pages, context page, fill it with different data, and verify that the form that already filled by the data correctly. Here we can verify in real life, for example, that the data appear on database, or this data appear on the next page of our application. But here we have a simple example. I just show you this page and what we're talking about. This is our public site. You can open it. Here we can have login functionality. We click here, enter some data, go to the contact form page, and fill this form with some data that mentioned in our slide here. So let's look how we can do it with JDI and with Flash Pages. First of all, as I say you, we can have the templates. We can open, for example, template for JDI 2.0. Just click here and download this example project, or we can have a git clone, but I think here we don't need it. Just download it, and as a result, we'll have something like this project. I already have the template here. Um, Here, when you download this file, you will have something like this framework. So here you have pretty standard structure with page object, with your test scenarios, and already will have all properties related to the JDI, related to logging, and so on. So you don't need to set up all this stuff. For example, we have our test scenario. Here it already described as comment, and I just need to put the scenario here. As you can see, we don't have any page objects, only test scenario. So I want to implement this scenario. What I will do as the test automation engineer with Flash Pages framework. I will go to my page. This is home page to my site, and just open the Home plugin. I hope you can see it. This is when you add it as extension, we can see here the tab JDI page object plugin. You can write it on this page. You can write default page and generate page object. I will describe later the stuff appear here. Now we just go to the next page, for example, contact form page, where we want to fill this data, and just press generate page object for this page. And also, for example, we generate some other page like this one. We can click generate, and we'll have 3 pages. After that, we just click download. We will have a zip file with our page object. We just can open it and go in our template here. Just open it in Explorer and put here our page object. No changes, only downloaded stuff downloaded from the site. As a result, we can have here our page object. It's already compiled. We have here our empty test, and I can just write this test by my hand, like home page, open, and implement this scenario. But I think you have not so much time for this, so I just copy paste this scenario. As you can see, I have no special methods here, just add the test scenario. Here I just have one difference, because by default we have entity called logins, and we need to have some kind of user entity. It's more obvious here, I think. Okay. Oh no, so it's not for contacts. This is for login form here. Okay. So now we have compiled our test. As you can see, we just download page object. Do change in one entity. This is no code, really code, just to more prettify it. And I just input here the code of our test scenario. That can be written manually. Also, what we need is the data for these entities. For user, we need to add data. I also copy paste it just to save your time here. Okay, and oh, sorry. Only this one. And also for contacts, this is much more data, but this is just the data, no code, no real code. This can be written by you manually. Okay, now our test scenario is ready. We can run it. I hope all things will be okay, because always with real life demo we can have some accidents. But you can see we open the page, log in, and fill all the stuff of our form and verify it. Is it the same or not? And we have the green test here. So the exercise are done. If you don't think that this is amazing, already have the good logging for our test. We do know, we put no logging records here, as you see, as also as for we have no weightings here. All elements are found with no special fetch leaves or something like this. And in logging, we have pretty much the same things that we have in code, like user icon, click on element, or here before we have homepage open with details. We have login form, login as a user, and we have details for this user. We also have details for submitting contact form. All data that we put in these contacts, we can see here in the log. And the same for verification, the data that verified. We can set up different log levels. Here we have only top level for like steps, and we just see here only the steps. But I think for debugging, you're more interested with, for example, info level. You can set up it here, and by default we have info level, so we don't need to set up it if we just download the template. So this is one of the feature of JDI. You will get really clear log for your test with no effort from engineer, and you don't need to think about it. If you want, you always can put a log line somewhere where JDI not handle it, but this will be really rare activity. The other thing, we have this log also in the file here, and we can have it in Jenkins if we have Jenkins. So you can have all details related to tests with no effort. Also, we will have a report, but I don't demonstrate it here because we need to rebuild it. This is not for demo, I think. And as I already said, we have a really good structure for our pages, page objects. What we have here, let's go, let's observe the page objects. Maybe it will be good to have here some kind of presentation mode to see it. So here we have site, and we have pages for this site. And this all stuff I just want to mention generated automatically by our Flash plugin. Okay, looks like better to go out with this mode. Okay, next one, we have these pages. We can observe them. For example, home page. We have elements here. They also all are defined by automatically by Flash pages. Here we have sections for header and footer. We have navigation sidebar. We can observe home page here. Yeah, we have home header. We have navigation bar, and we have main area. And in each area, we can have elements. For example, in the header, we have login form, some elements, and in login form, we have with buttons and text fields. We can see it here. All things are founded by the Flash pages. We have sections. This is parts of pages. We have pages, and we have our site. And also, Flash pages generate business objects for us. This is user, but we change the name, just only the name. And this is context for our form. And we can see that this has the really similar structure as the accordance section, for example, context form. It also has passport, asset condition, name, things, but they are typified and they have locators. And here we have data class for our context. So just demonstrate, we can create a new entity, for example, default contacts. Really easily just write new contacts and can set default. Okay. And set here our entity contact, I don't know, description, something like this. Or if you want to change two fields, and as a result, we'll have a different default entity, but we've changed description. We also can write here something like name and put data here. So in this way, you can easily set up your entities with that data class. Okay, I think we are pretty close to the end of our session, and I just briefly describe you the stuff that was done in the Flash pages and describe how it happens that we can generate all the data just with one click. Few points related to page object generator. We call it Flash pages. We can generate page objects in seconds. We will have a simple and stable locators for them because we set up good rules for it. This is the page object from plugin for our home, and we can manage our page objects in this plugin, not in the code. And it also supports Selenium, and we have in plans to support Selenite page objects. And one of the big feature that we can regenerate our page objects also in one click if the layout is changed. So roughly, this plugin will save about half of your effort on your test automation because you don't need to write your page objects and just can write test scenarios. A few words related to this plugin. I think, okay, let's continue the presentation. This plugin, as I already say, you can open by F12 button as a standard developer tools. And you will have, as a result, the tree structure of your page elements. You can add new elements with this green plus button. You can observe the tree structure for your elements, and you can modify your elements data, like name, like type. This is type of your element, like button, text field, and so on. And the locator. Here, the simple locator, this is CSS locator header. You can see an example. Also, you can observe the code of your page objects. This is can be done only for sections and pages where we have the code and not for elements. And this is the magic how we get the elements from the page. In this plugin, we have kind of rules for each type of elements, and we can add new types and remove unused for your site. And for each element, we can have a different list of rules. For example, if we have different layouts for buttons in your application, we can set up 2 or 3 rules for different buttons. And here we need to specify 2 things for each rule. For simple things like buttons, text fields, images, and so on, for simple elements that described in previous session, what is the simple element. We just need to define the locator. This is locator to find all elements of this group, so all buttons. For example, we want to define all buttons like with input tag and attribute type equal text. And the next field is how framework can do this element, this found elements uniqueness. So, for example, we can found dozen, for example, 10 buttons with this pattern, input type text, and all they have different IDs. In this way, we will get 10 different buttons in our page object with different IDs. You don't need to specify these IDs here. The framework will get it from the page and create special locator for each button that like accumulation of these two locators. So just an example here, we have this HTML code, for example, for two types of button. One is button class button, and now second one is input type. And we have these three buttons, and two of them have the similar layout, but different values. We will have two rules for these buttons. One is for input type, and one is for button. And all this stuff are typified and already can be used in your test scenarios. I think this is all from my side. I can also demonstrate these things here in plugin. Just briefly, you can open this tree. You can manage this stuff for your elements. You can observe the code, and you can add new elements in different places and in tree. You can put it in different places in tree, and here you will have the rules that you can specify. You can add new rules and specify all the stuff related to page object generator. So I think that's all from me related to Flash pages and related to JDI. For more details, you can observe our communities and our repositories. And in the next session that we will have at the 21st June, we'll tell you about our framework for services testing that called JDI HTTP, and also about the JDI Lite that mentioned above. This is simple solution for writing your tests if you already have Selenium, or if you have a good Selenium background and not familiar with JDI. You can simply go in it using this framework. So all this demo will be in the next session. Thank you all for participating here, and you can ask your questions in the questions area. Please type them, and I have a few minutes to answer on them. And if I not answer on the questions, you can write them directly to me or testing community, and I will answer on them later. Okay, let's observe your questions. Okay, I see here. Sorry, looks like we have some problems with sound, unfortunately, and I don't see this. But I hope not all of the presentations are out of sound. I can see here few questions how does your plugin generate page objects? Can we see the locators? What if they don't have IDs? As you see on this example, we don't need IDs for our elements. So this can be values, this can be text. For example, for these elements in the example, just will show you. We have no IDs here. Oh, no, here we have ID. Okay, on contact form, I hope not for all elements we have IDs. For example, here, I know we have no IDs here. We have just text for these elements, support dates, and so on. And we can set up rules that searching these elements by the text or by value or by any attribute. ID is just, for example, and as I know, here no IDs in the example. So you don't need to have IDs for your elements. You can have anything to find your elements. One question is related to the difference between JDI 2.0 and 1.0. You can find these things in our previous presentation, for example, on Selenium Camp or in the Gazin bug in previous year, for example. But I think I have no time here to describe these things because we have a lot of things to demonstrate just for common JDI. But briefly, the main differences are in the more good architecture in the core of framework, and this is not related to how you will use it in your projects. And also we have some new features, but they are not really big for pages, for elements. We move some elements from composite to complex and something like this. Main idea of JDI 2.0 is to do our code more simple and have idea to add contributors to our framework. So if for simpler code, we can easily support it, and to share it for different platforms with less code changes. So most of the things moved into the core, and in web we just have things related to web frameworks and web specific. Generally, if you use JDI 1 or JDI 2.0, you can find really big differences here, but maybe it is a little bit more stable. And also we have some differences in logging. We have more clear log for here. And you can have only the data you are interested in. If you, one of the questions, if you have, and I think this is the last question, if we have a lot of elements, for example, some of them we don't want to see, and they are, for example, all are in our template, like input type button, how we will handle these things in page object generator. This can be managed simply. You just need to add some specific on your rule, how you can identify these visible elements and not visible. For example, you can put in the rule attribute display or none or something like this, or not none. Or you can maybe put some class here or something like this. In any case, the elements that are hidden and elements that are not hidden can be identified. You can do it by yourself, then you create locators manually, so you can do it with the rules. But maybe you just need to write a little bit more complex rules than just here. I think that's all related to questions. If you still have questions, you can write them by email. Just one late thing related to our plugin. We don't want to handle all types of layouts that you can have. We through all application. For example, you have buttons that have a similar layout but not standard. You can just modify these rules one time and can have generated page objects for your application. You can set up your rules and after that generate your page objects in seconds. But our general idea is to follow standards and to get these things in more close collaboration with developers. So the really good scenario, then you collaborate with your developers and say, okay, we follow some standard rules for generating your elements, for example, BT5 framework or Bootstrap framework, and we will cover this with our rules predefined for this framework. This is the main idea related to page objects. Of course, it can't identify all elements that are developed in some tricky way with no locators, no IDs, no input types, and so on. I think that's all. Thank you all for participating, and this is all in these sessions related to JDI directly, and on the next session we will look on the services testing, and we will observe JDI HTTP framework and JDI Lite framework for like Selenium tests. Thank you all for participating and ask your questions if you have them in the email to testing community or me directly. Thank you all and bye.